amendments. Amendment number 1 is a request from the city of Murfreesboro. It's for the Bradyville Pike widening. The state is adding state STBG funding to the project for right-of-way. I'll also note that TDOT has committed to provide construction funding in the future, but they have not yet approved that funding through their 3-year work program. So there is a commitment toward construction for the end of this project. Following that, we have a request from TDOT to add funds to the State Route 109 Portland Bypass project. They're adding additional funds for right-of-way. Then we have a request from the City of Columbia to add a new project to the TIP. This is for their bridge replacement at Iron Bridge Road project. They're getting this started through coordination with TDOT local programs. They are going to be looking to fund preliminary engineering locally and pursue other funding opportunities down the road. Following that's a request from Lebanon for their Lebanon traffic signal restoration project. They received federal emergency relief program funds in order to help them replace and repair some signal damage that occurred as a result of the March 3rd tornado. So we're happy to be adding this project to the team for them. Next is a request from the city of Mount Juliet for their Cedar Creek Greenway project. GNRC is adding funds to this project. This is an addition of funds through the call for cost overruns. This is additional funding for construction. And after that, we have another request from Mount Juliet for their Woodridge Place sidewalks project, also adding funds for construction through the call for cost overruns. And Mount Juliet's Town Center Trail project, after that, we are adding funds to that project as well through the call for cost overruns. We have a request from the town of Smyrna to add funds to the Weekly Lane and Swan Drive intersection improvements project. This is also in addition to construction funds through the call for cost overruns. And another request from Smyrna for their Lowry Street improvements project. We are adding funds again to construction through the call for cost overruns. We have a request from the city of Murfreesboro for their Mercury Boulevard sidewalks project. We are adding funds to that project through the call for cost overruns. This is for additional funds for construction. And a request from Murfreesboro for their Rutherford Boulevard Adaptive Signal Control Technology project, adding funds for construction and ITS activities through the call for cost overruns. Finally, we're going to have a modification to the Highway Infrastructure Program grouping page. This is due to a shift in funds that we are providing out of this grouping that we use to fund, to provide extra funding through the call for cost overruns. And then this last amendment is a request from TDOT. This is actually a last minute request that we received yesterday. They have a project scheduled for the February letting. They're in need of adding a fair amount of funds, more than 50% of the original cost to construction for the Nashville area I-40 Smartway expansion project. They requested that we get this added to this goal so that they can hopefully keep this project on the letting schedule. You've got a screenshot of a draft summary page here since it was not included in your original packet, but we just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that this was a new addition that you've not gotten to take a look at yet. And that concludes our run through of proposed amendments. And as always, I'm happy to take any questions anybody might have.
Hello, Anna. Can you hear me?
I can.
Court over in Gallatin. I have a couple of questions. One is a hypothetical, and I'm not picking on any particular project or anything like that, but I'll just use the first one as an example. of these amendment cycles, are these a combination of both requests to cover cost overruns and to just amend the project to add funds? Like for the first one, the Bradyville Pike right of way, we're just adding the project and not funds, right?
So that is correct, that this is a combination of just kind of run-of-the-mill, if you will, amendment requests, as well as the projects that we provided additional funding through the call for cost overruns. So that's a good question. Thank you for asking it. I probably should have mentioned that on the front end.
Okay.
The Bradyville Pike project, for example, it was in a previous TIP. It rolled out of that TIP because all current program funding had been obligated. So we technically are having to add it back into the TIP, even though it's been in the TIP before, because TDOT has now provided it with additional funding to move on to the next phase.
Okay. So this only is this it kind of emptied the box out, for example, on this project for Bradyville Pike, that just kind of empties the right of way box funds out, STBG funds?
Murfreesboro funded preliminary phases of this project using local funds, and because it's a state route project, they, had a conversation with TDOT about the potential of the state providing additional funds to the project in order to, help maintain and improve the state route. So TDOT did commit to providing funds in the future. It's just that when they do that, they sometimes can't always provide everything immediately. So once the funding was made available, they went ahead and added it to the project. We're probably going to see that down the road again when they're able to provide construction funds.
Yeah, and they may need more. I guess if the right of way box is emptied, at least at this point, they may need additional funds for right of way in the future and that kind of thing as well.
That's correct. It's a possibility.
And another question I have then, when we have TIP Amendment Cycle B come around, and I guess in the later winter, we'll be able to also add funds to some of these projects. Maybe not necessarily these, but other projects that need extra funds for construction or right of way.
We're not anticipating holding another call for cost overruns in the immediate future. We always like to know if somebody has a need so that we can evaluate potential steps we might be able to take. So definitely let us know if you have something like that, and we will let everyone know if we're going to do another call similar to that.
Okay, well, we might have one. It's unknown at this point, but we might have one, very small, but you just didn't submit it this time.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
No problem. Did anyone else have any questions? Sean, if you don't mind flipping back to that final slide. This is the remaining schedule for this cycle of amendments. We will be presenting these amendments to the Transportation Policy Board on the 16th of this month. In anticipating adoption on that date, we will also hold a public hearing for this cycle on that date. So I think this wraps up the amendment cycle.
All right. Thank you, Anna. Are there any follow-up questions regarding these amendments?
Hey, this is Sean. I'm sorry, Glenn. You mind if I just this is Sean with FHW. Anna, with the long-range plan update going on currently, are you guys ensuring the consistency between these projects as amended, and how they're going to be reflected in the updated long-range plan?
We are, yes. That's a good question too, Sean. Yeah, we always make sure that we reflect on those RTP IDs and cross-reference things as we go through this. So thank you.
Hi, Anna. This is Katrina Jones at Nashville Public Works. Is the complete amendment cycle schedule out on the GNRC or MPO website?
I believe, yes, that it's posted to the website. I will double check on that for you following this meeting, and I'm happy to send you a link to that, or also just send you a PDF of the remaining schedule.
Yeah, if you can send that out to everybody, I think that'll be helpful.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Thank you.
Great questions and answers there. Do we have any more information needed from Anna? Hearing none, we'll look for a motion to endorse the proposed amendments for adoption by the Transportation Policy Board on December 16th.
This is Kevin Rigsby, Smyrna. I'll make that motion.
This is Keith Free in Hendersonville. I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. That'll carry us on to the next item on our agenda, which is under informational items. And this is a presentation of annual listing of obligations and project updates. And Anna will present this one to us.
Thank you so much again, Glenn. You may or may not remember that around this time every year we present to you a list of all of the federal obligations that occurred over the course of the last fiscal year. You received that list in its entirety in your agenda packet. It's about 7 pages worth of spreadsheets that shows projects that had funding obligated, what phases of those projects were obligated, obviously, what the amounts were, as well as the dates of obligations. Sean, if you don't mind just flipping to the next slide.
Is that coming through, Anna? Should be on the annual listing.
Maybe I'm the only one with a lag. Does anybody else? Okay, there it goes. Thank you, Sean. Sorry about that. So we had about 244 million obligated this past year. That includes everything in our planning area and every funding type, including the funding sources that TDOT has jurisdiction over. That grand total represents 117 million in FHWA funds and 127 million in FTA funds. The FTA funds this year are much larger, probably than we see, due to the fact that it includes the 75 million our region received in CARE Act funds for transit-related projects. Also, of that grand total, about 24 million of that obligated amount was MPO suballocated funds. So that's funds that the MPO, has awarded through our long range plan and through our TIP, funds that are suballocated to us that we have jurisdiction over to direct those investments. Okay, Sean, you want to move on to the next slide? Okay, perfect. So as part of this overall obligation conversation, you also may remember a spreadsheet that we were presenting probably about a year ago on a quarterly basis that kind of outlined everyone's projects that had our suballocated MPO money on it. Where those projects were in their development process, any comments that you guys had provided to us about the status of those projects, as well as any comments that TDOT had on the project development side of things. We have kind of revamped that spreadsheet, thanks in large part to some work that Daniel Caparella has been doing It's a lot easier on the eye and friendlier to look at. So we're going to start using this new format of this TIP project tracker spreadsheet. We'll be sending this out to everybody in our follow-up email after the meeting. And what we just ask is that everyone take a moment to look over this spreadsheet, look at your particular projects, and provide us via email with any feedback that you have on the projects that you have listed on this spreadsheet. Again, you may not see all of your projects on this spreadsheet if it's a state-sponsored project, or maybe a project that you have going with the TDOT TAP office or something like that. You might not see it listed. But if you have MPO, STBG, or MPO TAP funds on a project, then you'll see it listed on this spreadsheet. And just let us know whether or not the information that you're seeing on the spreadsheet is correct, or whether there's any additional feedback you want to provide us in terms of where the project stands currently, or if you have any kind of snags that you're dealing with right now on any aspect of the project's development. You'll see on this sheet that we have the program funding amounts listed. We have any amounts that you have obligated listed as well. You know, I think everyone's familiar with the TIP policies, that if your obligation that was programmed, or if your funding that was programmed in any given year was not obligated in that same fiscal year, then you're kind of in a year of grace period to get that funding obligated. So if you have funding listed as programmed in fiscal year 2020 and nothing was obligated, then you can consider that funding to be kind of in grace period. We also have some local matches spelled out in the spreadsheet. One of the things that we do want to ask you for, in addition to any comments that you have on your projects in this spreadsheet, is to remember to be providing us with proof of local match on any of these projects that you've received money for. That can come in the form of a letter to us. It can come in the form of a resolution passed by you know, one of your councils or commissions. But we do like to have that on file from everybody, just to assure that all the necessary pieces are in place to be able to move these projects forward and get things obligated in a timely manner. That was a mouthful, I know, about the TIP project tracker. Does anybody have any questions about what we're looking for here? Is there anything I can clarify?
Hey, Anna, this is Shamila Patel from Franklin Transit.
Hi.
Can you tell me on the letter for the proof of local match, do you want that for FY21 or do you want it for calendar year 21? Do you have a date preference there?
So at this point, we'll mostly be looking for funds that are programmed in fiscal year 2021, but I will be honest in saying that we don't have a lot of proof of local match on file for fiscal year 2020. So if you don't think you've sent that to me in the past, or if you just want to ask me whether I have something on file for anyone in particular, I'd be happy to let you know.
Perfect, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anna, this is Katrina with Metro Nashville Public Works. So under 2020, under the allocated federal funds, if the dollar amount is in orange, does that mean that that's funding that was not obligated in that fiscal year?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks again, Anna. Are there any more follow-up questions regarding the project obligation chapter? All right, if everyone could take a look at that throughout the next week or so, and see if you need to provide any updates to MPO staff to get all those items buttoned up. So we'll move on to the next informational item now, which is regional priorities for TDOT 3-year work program. And Sean Falzer with the MPO will present that one.
Great, thank you, Glenn. To continue our discussion on projects, one of the other items that typically around this time of year that we weigh in on is TDOT's 3-year work program. And so TDOT is seeking input from MPOs across the state on these TDOT-led projects being considered for the state's upcoming 3-year work program. As you recall, this list is part of the overall statewide list that TDOT presents to the legislature each year, typically in the spring for approval by the Tennessee General Assembly. And they use the feedback in combination with a number of other things, but feedback from the MPOs as part of that process to prioritize the list of needs competing for the limited funding. Many of these candidate projects, I think, will look familiar to you. So many of them are under development. Some are even ready for construction. And so we shared the candidate list, project list with you all in an Excel version, along with the meeting packet last week, and contains some of the basic project information, some of the updated TDOT Region 3 rankings and comments, as well as some of the previous MPO and local comments from last year. The projects, as I mentioned, should look very familiar because the list is very similar to last year, and also a lot of these candidate projects mirror those candidate projects that were submitted by TDOT for consideration through the 2045 Regional Transportation Plan. So there's approximately 50 projects on the list. TDOT has broken up those projects based on the phase of work that they're requesting funding for, and that breaks out to 40% of the projects seeking construction, 25% seeking right-of-way, and 35% seeking preliminary engineering. And so I think one of the key takeaways is that only 4 of the projects on this list have changed phase of work since last year. And so we're looking at a lot of the same projects. There's been no new start projects, which are kind of new projects that TDOT submitted for our consideration. Also, no new safety and operation projects that have been added to this list. Also mentioned that nearly 2/3 of these projects are currently listed within the 2020 to 2023 Transportation Improvement Program, and so you've seen a lot of these short-term priorities over the year. And all of these also, as I mentioned, the list is very consistent with what the TDOT priorities were for the long-range planning process, and so all are currently included in that draft 2045 Regional Transportation Plan. Just to give you kind of a summary of the previous approach that we've used in indicating priorities for this 3-year work program. We looked at phase of development, new TDOT priorities for safety and operations, the MPO's Regional Transportation Plan priorities, and then new starts kind of in that order. And, I think given that, regarding step 1, since a lot of those phases of development haven't changed, that a lot of what was indicated last year still holds true, given that a lot of those projects are still seeking the particular phase of funding for the particular phases of work. Given that we're step 2 and step 4 not as applicable this year, given that we're not dealing with any new safety and operations projects or new start projects. Step 3 priorities that we're kind of in the transition, I guess, for a lot of those priorities. But I think given that there's not a significant amount of major changes from last year, staff was thinking that it makes a lot of sense to reiterate kind of our priorities from last year. But we're open to any comments or feedback to let us know if there's any kind of objections to kind of that approach of reiterating some of the priorities from last year. One thing that we would like to spend a little bit of time on today, given that we have the TDOT Region 3 with us on today's call, having access to them and any questions that you have, any questions, comments, concerns on projects that they could weigh in on and hopefully address. And then any questions particularly on the Region 3 rankings or comments that were contained within the list, any concerns that you might have with some of the projects that are listed or not listed. Are there any projects that you would like to see added to this list? And I think that what is some information that we can discuss today, as well as also have an opportunity over the coming week if you want to relay any of those additional comments that may not have ready today. But I guess with that, we can open it up if folks have some comments that they'd like to relay. TDOT, I know we have OCT as well as Region 3 on the call. Feel free to plug in any of the gaps that I may have missed through that quick introduction. But with that, I think we can open it up to any comments or questions on the candidate list.
Sure, Sean. This is Shane Hester out at Region 3. Can I add a little bit to what you just mentioned there? So, each year the OCT provides us with a list of the MPO and RPO projects and asks us to give comments on the projects and basically to rank the projects. The way we go about this exercise is we rank the right-of-way and construction phases together. And the way we go about this is we consider the likelihood that project, is going into the next phase or the phase that it's programmed for. So for projects currently in the right-of-way phase, and we're going to construction phase, and say it's a large project that's got 150 tracks, for example, and we're just beginning that, we wouldn't rank that really high for construction because we know it's going to take us 2 to 3 years to acquire all the right-of-way. The same kind of for the right-of-way process. If a project is budgeted for right-of-way, our milestones to get a project to right-of-way are a complete set of right-of-way plans, but we also have to have an approved NEPA document. So if we've just started engineering on a project and it's budget, the next phase that we budgeted for is for right-of-way, then, we're kind of considering, the time that it takes to get that project ready for that next phase. So just wanted to add that. That's kind of a caveat on just kind of how we look at, this exercise and how we rank the projects.
This is Bill McCord over at Gallatin. Sean, when was that list sent? I don't think I got a copy of that list.
When we sent the meeting packet, we also attached the Excel spreadsheet in that email.
Okay.
I can resend it if it didn't come through. I know we had some initial challenges last week on that email distribution, but yesterday's reminder email should also contain the Excel spreadsheet.
Okay. Maybe I didn't download it for some reason. I don't know. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Shane, this is Glenn Harper with the City of Columbia. I had a question on a project that didn't show up on the list. It's one that's scheduled for the March letting, and I didn't know if it just rolled off because of that, or it should be on there. It's the I-65 and Bear Creek interchange in Murray County.
Glenn, it looks like Shane may have dropped off. He might be experiencing technical difficulties. Is there anyone else?
Yeah, that didn't show up because it's already received funding. So there's nothing really to rank there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's if it's received funding, it's not going to show up.
Thank you.
You got it.
Are there any other questions for MPO staff or TDOT regarding this 3-year list?
This is Katrina Jones from Nashville again. Where can we find, I guess, the project descriptions or more information about some of the projects within the city limits within Davidson County?
I can actually send you an update right now. I have a list I can share with you, just Davidson County.
Yes, because some of those projects may be overlapping areas where we're going to have other projects going on. So we just need to see that information and maybe have some coordination.
Sure. There was actually a TDOT Metro update sent. I believe that was Monday. I know Jeff Hammond received that. Did you not receive that? Because if not, I'll just forward it to you.
I did not. I'm not on
Okay.
that distribution list.
Well, you will be right now, so I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean, this is Shane Hester. Sorry, I'm back on the call. For some reason, Microsoft Teams booted me off when I was talking there, so I don't know how much of you all heard what I was saying.
We just there was a quick question from Glenn in Columbia about the Bear Creek interchange of 65 not being on the list, but I told him that's already received funding, so that wouldn't make the list.
That's correct.
So Sean, once everyone gets a chance to kind of read into this list, is there any action that the committee needs to take? Do we need to send comments or questions to anyone in particular?
I think in past years we've submitted a letter to TDOT with the prioritized list of based on our rankings. We can follow that same approach this year. Given that there's a lot of overlap with last year's priorities to this year's priorities, if folks are okay with kind of reiterating our support from last year, we can also default to what we came up with last year, if folks are in agreement on that. I don't think TDOT's looking for formal endorsement, just a indication from the MPOs on their priorities.
Yeah, and if we could just have that indication before the end of the year, that's all that TDOT is requesting.
All right. Is there any more follow-up questions from any of the committee? I'm sure if anyone has any questions or needs more information on any of the projects, they could reach out to MPO staff and or TDOT, Jonathan or Shane, and they could get you all you needed. So feel free to do that. So having no more questions on that item, we'll move on to regular reports. Sean, it looks like we have the Federal Highway on here as the first.
Hey, thank you, Glenn. This is Sean Santaya with the Federal Highway Administration Tennessee Division. Thank you guys for the opportunity to provide an update. Just two quick items. First one, I'm sure Sean Falzer will get to this as part of the staff update, but the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration have received the MPO's draft long-range plan update, as well as the CMP specific documentation to address the congestion management process update. So we are reviewing those items, conducting a concurrent review with the with TDOT, and are planning to have comments back to the MPO by the end of the month here, hopefully sooner than that. The next one is I wanted to speak briefly about FHWA's Everyday Counts initiative. And Sean, if you don't mind to share that screen, and I'm putting a link in the chat pod here to the web page for our Everyday Counts initiative. And what this is this is a through FHWA Center for Accelerating Innovation, and this is a means for FHWA to identify, showcase, and help to advance innovative practices in transportation that are happening across the country. So they do this in rounds. So you'll hear EDC 1, EDC 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we're coming up on EDC 6. It's going to take place over calendar year 2021. And what we've done is we've identified 7 innovative practices that we're showcasing through EDC 6. And so, Sean, I appreciate you scrolling through those. You've got crowdsourcing for operations. How is crowdsourcing data used to assist with the operation of the roadway network, increase safety and reliability? Got e-ticketing for materials ticketing, digital ticketing there. Next generation traffic incident management. What kind of innovations are happening in traffic incident management? Strategic workforce development. How are we continuing to create that pipeline for folks that are working in the transportation workforce? Pavement solutions, not as well versed in that. Ultra high performance concrete, again a new material here, and then virtual public involvement. Sean, if you scroll down just a hair for the last one there, virtual public involvement is the 7th innovation. So these are these are different innovative practices that are proven to have success in streamlining projects, in showing benefits to the operation of the system. For the materials ones, it's things that are safer, things that are more cost effective. And all that. And so FHWA is dedicating resources towards advancing these. We are dedicating flexibility to the state for conducting it. There's opportunities for increased federal share on projects which incorporate these innovative practices. And there's dedicated technical assistance and training that's available for those that want to learn more about these practices. And so, as I said, that's what this Everyday Count initiative is all about. So, Sean, if you'll scroll up for me just real quick here. Next week, FHWA is going to be holding an EDC 6 summit. So, Sean, if you don't mind to click on that link that says EDC 6 summit, that's on the right there, I guess. Yep. So again, next week we're going to be holding a summit to showcase this, kind of kick off this effort. This summit is normally held in person, and as such, attendance is limited to specific TDOT staff. Generally, the leadership over at TDOT will participate, and then maybe some of the additional partners that TDOT has. But given the virtual nature of the summit this year, it's opened up to all of our partners, state DOTs, local agencies, our federal land management agencies, the MPO staff, any interested party is welcome to participate in this summit. And again, it's the agenda is here, and this is where we're going to be showing how these innovative practices are being actually carried out, the kinds of benefits that they're proving, and discussing how FHWA can work with state DOTs and our other local partners to basically continue to improve what we're carrying out and supporting, all of our joint mission of a safer, more effective transportation system. So I just wanted to put the pitch out there. For anyone that's interested in any of these innovative practices, wanting to learn more, I would encourage y'all to register for the summit, participate as you're able. Reach out to our office. Reach out to reach out to our office, and we'll see what we can do to provide any training, provide any more information. I've just put a link to the summit specifically in there. So that's all the updates I've got. Happy to take any questions that anyone might have for FHWA or FTA.
Thanks, Sean, and thanks for all that information and news about the presentations that we can participate in there. Does anyone have any questions for Sean?
Sean, this is Katrina with Metro Nashville. Is there a cost for the summit or the EDC courses?
No, it's totally free.
Excellent. And do you know if there are PDHs that will be offered for attending?
Yeah, I don't know that off the top of my head, but I am happy to find out.
Thank you.
All right, Glenn, I appreciate the opportunity to provide an update here.
Yes, thank you. So it looks like the next report we have on the agenda is a report from TDOT. And I don't know, Sean, who is going to lead us on that one.
Glenn, that's going to be me, Jonathan Russell here.
Oh, thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah, so just really quick, as you see it on your screen, this is something that we're very excited about at TDOT. This is a new grant opportunity. For 6 years now, we've had something called the Community Transportation Planning Grant, and that grant is available for all communities outside of an MPO, so areas in an RPO. So since 2015, we funded 63 grants across the state to help rural communities plan. And when I say plan, these are corridor studies, mobility plans, bike ped plans, TSMO plans. These have been very popular throughout the state, but we've never offered them typically in an MPO area because usually MPOs are seen as having their own funds, usually smaller in geography, with the exception of the Nashville planning area, which is the largest in the state with 7 full counties. So we've decided to take this grant and make it available just for areas in MPO areas. So what we want to do, there's 11 MPOs across the state, and so this is the first year. Our goal is to fund 1 grant per MPO. However, that's just for this year. Moving forward, we want to make that available to more communities within the MPO. And we also anticipate this year having a few MPOs who don't have any applications. So there could be potential this year for multiple applications from 1 MPO. But so this year we have $2 million available, 200,000 maximum award. There is a local match of 10%. These letter of interest are going to be due January 15th. And again, it's open to anyone who represents a county, a city, a town within the 7 county planning area for Nashville. I would also ask if you would, any of you all who are county representatives, please help us get the word out to your, Mount Pleasants, like in Murray County, your Westmorelands, like in Sumner County. We want to make sure it's not just your larger areas, but also typically those underserved, so to speak, cities and towns and in our rural parts of the MPO as well. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. We're excited about this grant. If you want just more information about what it is, feel free to go to our website as well. You can just Google CTPG for Community Transportation Planning Grant. It'll bring up our website. You can look at plans done across the state. Some really good stuff happening. But now it's time to focus on the urban areas as well. And so one other thing I'll mention, Sean, if you could go to the next slide. If any of you all are interested, we're doing our round 2 public meetings for the I-40, I-81 corridor study that's been going on for almost a year now, not quite. So next Thursday night, 5:30 to 6:30, that's going to be Middle Tennessee's focused. It'll be focused on all the area in the 26 county area of Region 3, but also honed in on the greater Nashville area as well. So if you would like that link, I'm sure Sean can send that out. But last time, this summer, first round, I think we had 47 attendees from the public, and we'd love to increase that. So this is for city officials and for locals alike. So come one and all to that meeting next Thursday night. Other than that, are there any questions on the urban planning grant or the I-40 study?
Hey, Jonathan, this is Ian. Would you mind clarifying if, like, the actual application process, if the letter of intent is the application for our urban communities, or do they have to send something extra?
Yeah, so we have basically a 2-page, I don't want to call it application, but you can call it whatever you want to. You fill in a few questions, very generic, and then you include your overview of what you're looking to do. I can send that out to you. Again, all we're doing is taking these letters of interest, and that serves as basically your application. So you can call it whatever you want to. Application, letter of intent. I can get you that application, and you just need to have that in to us by January the 15th. It's not a hard application. It's the moral of the story.
Hey, thanks. Hey, Jonathan, this is Whitney Sullivan with Neil Schaefer. I actually posed that question to Ian, so thanks for bringing that up. Because I was reading in the guidance that it says that after you turn in a letter, and you'd be invited to submit an application. So that's why I had that question.
Yes, that's a great question. There's been a lot of debate about that. That's how multimodal does their applications. You know, there's a letter of intent, and then you're invited to apply. We don't anticipate that this is going to be a huge effort statewide. I mean, maybe there's a lot more applications in the Nashville MPO than there are across the state, but let me make sure. The easy answer is let me make sure anything hasn't changed. I don't think we're going to actually be requesting a formal application, but I'll make sure I set the record clear. And by the way, so TDOT does have 10 consultants. They're on our official on-call list. Every 5 years, we update that on-call list. So we have 10 consultants. So if you were to apply, you are selected, you would be given the opportunity to select one of our 10 on-call consultants. So all the procurement, all the billing, everything would be handled through TDOT. Only thing you would have to do on the front end is send in a 10% match, and then everything is taken care of by TDOT. You don't review invoices. You don't have to do any of that. Any other questions?
And is this through TDOT local programs, or is this through TDOT planning division? This
is going to be through the long range planning division. That's the division I'm at. For 6 years, I've been the lead on the planning grants across the state. I assume I'm going to be the lead on this as well. But we wanted to get this rolled out and not wait another year. So this is new to us, going in the urbanized areas, but we're excited about it. I think it's long overdue. So this is open to your large cities. This is open anywhere from Nashville to Watertown can apply for this.
Do you mind repeating where this information is on the TDOT website?
I will post it. Actually, I will send the email to Sean and let him distribute that. I can post where our again, we did the rural planning grant for 6 years. I can send that to you. I don't think this is on the website yet as far as the urban one. So I don't want to get you confused, but I will have everything sent to Sean today, and I'll let him distribute that.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks, Jonathan. And I'll include that in the TCC follow-up email.
Sure. And like I said, we do anticipate a few MPOs not to apply for this grant just because of their size. So hopefully this year that opens up more opportunities for larger MPOs. And moving forward, like I said, the goal is not to do one per MPO. The goal is to do as many as needed across the state. I mean, there's so many applications the Jackson MPO could apply for and the Clarksville MPO. So we want to give multiple opportunities to larger geographies.
Jonathan, this is Bill McCord over in Gallatin. Did I hear you say that this would only be one grant for an eligible community in the Nashville MPO area?
Yeah, so what we said is for the first year, we're only going to fund one grant per MPO. But again, we anticipate not every MPO is going to have an application. So let's say Jackson, Lakeway, which is Morristown, Clarksville, let's say those three don't have any applications.
Yeah.
We're still going to fund 11 this year. So, you know, if we only get 7 applications from 7 different MPOs, but Nashville had 7, we would probably explore giving Nashville more than that, more than one.
So is there a strategy that maybe several communities could jointly submit an application?
I think that's probably a great idea. And you might run into a little bit of a cost factor because the limit is 200,000. But yeah, I mean, this is open to cities, towns, and counties. So, hey, for our planning grant in Campbell County right now in East Tennessee, we have 5 jurisdictions in a county doing a combined planning grant. And so, yeah, absolutely, you could do that.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Jonathan, this is Felix.
Hey, Felix.
With WeGo. Just to be clear, so there's not a requirement for the MPO to prioritize applications.
No.
So the cities submit to the MPO. If they get 7, the MPO submits 7 applications.
So we're asking each MPO to give input. Let's say Nashville gets 6 applications. We're going to ask the MPO, not publicly, but we'll ask staff to give us input if they have any on what they feel are better projects. However, the sole selection is done by TDOT completely. So, Nashville might say, hey, Westmoreland probably has the best application, and we would take that into consideration, but we're also ultimately going to make that call.
All right, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Jonathan. Are there any other follow-up questions? And if you don't tell the other MPOs about this opportunity, that would probably help us out some.
Yes. We do recognize, just real quick, we do recognize that the geography of the MPO planning area in Nashville is rather large. So that will be taken into consideration as well, at least compared to all the other MPOs across the state.
Thank you for that. I have nothing for the chair's report, so we'll move on to staff report. Sean?
Thanks, Glenn. I'm going to let Daniel start us off with some of the staff updates, talking first about an update on ADA transition plans. Daniel,
Thanks,
you
Sean.
ready?
Yeah. So the Americans with Disabilities Act requires that all local entities and state entities provide a grievance procedure and at least one employee to coordinate ADA compliance. I'm happy to report that all of our member communities have met this requirement, but entities with 50 or more employees are required to complete ADA self-evaluations and transition plans that detail any structural changes that need to be made to bring the entity into compliance. So 19 out of 27 of our communities in our region that have 50 or more employees have completed this requirement. I've reached out to many of you in the past couple of weeks. Thank you to those who have responded with updates, and thank you to the communities who have posted their plans and completed this part of the process. There are 6 communities that are underway with their plans, and there are 2 communities I haven't heard from. Keep in mind that these plans are living documents and only represent minimum requirements. So there's always more to be done to make sure that your community is accessible to people with disabilities. So Sean, if you could move to the next slide. So if you see your community on this list and the status is incorrect, please contact me. If you haven't heard from me and are responsible for this requirement, please also contact me as soon as you can. And if you have any additional updates or have any questions, please contact me by email. My email is on the previous slide. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them now. But if not, I'll hand it back to Sean.
Great, thank you, Daniel. The only other item that I wanted to give an update on is, as part of our performance-based planning, wanted to give an update on some recent information that TDOT updated. They recently updated their performance report, their biennial performance report for a couple of the performance measure targets that we're required to support, and those being this report that was submitted to FHWA for their consideration and approval contains updated target information for performance measure 2, PM2 for bridges and pavement condition, as well as PM3, the system performance. And so what we've done is just summarize that information, some of the key updates in the following tables. So I'll start first with the PM2 on the infrastructure condition, which focuses on the condition of assets for NHS bridges, as well as interstate pavement and non-interstate pavement. And so if you look at these tables, we've got the baseline information from 2017. We've got the performance, which is basically the 2-year update on how that measure how that measure is reflected currently with the existing data. And then you can compare it to the 2-year target that was set in relation to the baseline, as well as the 4-year target that was set based on the baseline. And based on the performance of the 2-year, there is the option to adjust the 4-year target. And so in the far right column, you'll see where it says NA, that indicates that there's no adjustment to the 4-year target. If there is a different value in there, that indicates that 4-year target has been adjusted. So in looking at NHS bridges first, the percent of bridges in good condition and the percent of bridges in poor condition, you'll see that for good condition was lower than the baseline and the target as well, but that target has been maintained for the 4-year. And then for percent of bridges in poor condition, that performance was higher than the baseline, but lower than the target of 6%. For interstate pavement, the percent of interstate pavement in good condition, you'll see that we didn't have a baseline or a target, but the performance exceeds the 2-year performance exceeds the 4-year target for good condition, and then for poor condition is lower than the 4-year target. So those are both in the right direction. For non-interstate NHS pavement, the percent in good condition is very close to the 2-year target, slightly above the 4-year target, and then for percent in poor condition is pretty much right in line at 4% with the 2-year and 4-year target. And so, as I mentioned, based on these 2-year performances, TDOT is proposing to keep pretty much all of the 4-year targets for all of the measures except for the percent poor non-interstate NHS pavement, which is being increased from 4 to 5%. And then the next one is for PM3, the system performance that captures travel time reliability of the interstate system, as well as the non-interstate NHS system, and the freight network. And so for these, kind of just a quick iteration or quick lined up the same way with baseline, 2-year performance, the 2 and 4-year targets, as well as the adjusted. For interstate reliability and non-interstate NHS reliability, kind of the desired number is being closer to 100%. And so for interstate reliability, performance was slightly more reliable than the baseline. And and slightly above the 2-year and 4-year target. For the non-interstate NHS, the performance was slightly less reliable than the baseline, and slightly above the 4-year target. And then lastly, for the freight reliability, for this one, the kind of desired number is to be as close to 1 as possible, indicating more reliability. Performance was the same as the baseline and the target. In looking at, based on these numbers and looking at the adjustments, TDOT kept the interstate reliability and the non-interstate NHS reliability targets the same, and is proposing to adjust the target for freight reliability from 1.33 to 1.37. So anticipating less truck reliability into the future. And so I just wanted to quickly run through these just to give you a preview of these updates as we consider to continue whether to support the state targets for these different performance measures or set our own regional targets in the coming months. Any questions on that?
Question on the freight reliability. I guess the interstate reliability is based on level of service, operating level service. And it's, for example, interstates are operating at within an acceptable level of service 88.2% of the time. Is that right?
So, Max can, there's a lot to each of these measures, but I think one thing that they try and clarify is that it is solely a focus on the reliability as opposed to the level of congestion. And so I think a lot of these measures, they're kind of one of the dimensions of congestion that we've talked about, solely focused on the reliability aspect. But as you mentioned, kind of the more complete picture is, how do they relate to, because things can be congested or getting more congested, but the reliability could be reliably congested. And so I think it's important to look at these in the context of some of the other measures. For the interstate reliability, it's really focusing on that, how consistent or how little variation in that congestion on the interstate system.
And freight reliability is, delivery on time, or how's that one done again?
Yeah, Bill, I can jump in. This is Max. So it's calculated using the NPM RDS data set that comes from NRIX, and it's, to simplify the calculation, it's a percentile of speeds that are observed divided by the 50th percentile of speeds. So it's how often you are operating at a less than desirable level of speed. So it's speed related, not delivery related. It's the expected time that you would arrive somewhere versus the normal time that you would arrive somewhere based on your travel speed.
Okay. Do we happen to have any report on safety performance measures such as fatalities and serious injury crashes?
We can bring those updates to you at the next meeting. The biennial report that TDOT recently submitted was focused on the PM2 and PM3, but I think the safety is the PM1 that we'll also be discussing in tandem with these other performance measures. So we can bring those updates to you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Sean. Did you have more items in your report, or was that it for today?
The only other thing I'll mention, just to piggyback off of what Sean Santaya mentioned, is feel free to review the draft regional transportation plan documents. Both the chapters and the appendices are posted at www.gnrc.org/draft RTP files. And we've got the chapters as well as the appendices that are available for review and under review by TDOT and FHWA and FTA at the moment. And that's all I have, Glenn.
Thanks, Sean. The next item on the agenda is other business. If anyone from the committee has anything for the betterment of the group or anything that we missed today, feel free to bring it up now. Hearing none, we will be adjourned until the next TCC meeting on January 6, 2021. Thank you all.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.